My name is Aaron Lucas, and this is my presentation through my design process for Learnit, a vocabulary learning app. How do I find an app that can show me vocabulary I want and allows me to have fun? This is a quote by Clarice Hawkins, an aspiring writer, a successful business owner. She has a BA in journalism and lives in St. Pete, Florida, and she owns a consignment shop. What are her needs, desires, and pains? Clarice lives a busy life. Her fashion business is a passion turned career, and now she wants to expand and revisit an old passion, writing. She would like something that supplements the online writing class she signed up for by giving her guided practice with descriptive language. But it's been a while since she's written and she wants an app to help her practice expanding her vocabulary. So, what are the problems here? And what are the competitors doing? So when we started this project, we started with a brief, um, and that directed us in the requirements for this project. So what are we designing? We're designing a mobile application focused on learning new vocabulary. Why are we designing it? Because it can be difficult to keep track of all the jargon when studying a new discipline. Students need a way to methodically categorize, reference, and study new vocabulary and concepts. So, what's our problem statement? Our problem statement is that Clarice needs a way to study and learn specific types of new vocabulary. So, competitive analysis happened. And from that competitive analysis, what did we find? Well, there is a distinct difference between apps. Some apps are about playing games and guiding you through learning. Others are based on utility, but the ones that are based in utility and customization, they lack the fun games. So, for our prototype, we're going to focus on being able to create custom word sets like some of those apps that have a lot of usability and customization, because this app wants to combine customization with gamification. So, the custom word sets are going to be able to allow the user to have the most customizable experience possible. And for the purposes of this prototype, the other part that I focused on was onboarding, because I think that it's important to show users immediately the benefits of the app when they first open this app. So with that in mind, we created a couple user flows to sort of guide the design process. The first one on the left is that has a problem statement called as Clarice a writer, I want an app where I can customize what type of vocabulary I can practice so that I can write better articles. So this user flow just sets up the way that somebody would go about creating custom sets and adding vocabulary to those sets. On the right, we have the vocabulary app first time user flow. And that just is the flow from downloading to opening and then going through the sign up process to get to the homepage. I focused on the sign up instead of just the sign in process because the sign up is what's going to take the user through the onboarding process. So here are a couple initial drawings that I did, just pen and paper, and this gave me a good idea about the layout and what buttons and things that like of that nature that I might want to put into the project. From those, I took it into Figma and replicated what I had done, and have these lo-fi wireframes, and this is the wireframes describing the sign up user flow. So in order to test these designs, I decided to do some directed and scenario tasks. I thought directed tasks would be a better place to start because that way I could get a better feel for what users were expecting from the screens that they looked at. So I did this by asking them questions about where on the screen they would go to find specific items, and that way I could kind of keep track of where their expectations were leading them, and potentially design around that. For the scenario tasks, I just gave them the task of opening the app and signing up, and just I asked them to describe how they were feeling and what they were seeing and any pain points they might have along that journey. From the user testing, I got a couple insights broken down into two categories. The first was simplicity. One thing that was unanimous amongst participants was that I was not general enough in the screens when giving examples. So I used terms that were too specific to me. I was using acronyms and UX specific vocab in the examples during the onboarding process, and it was just not very easily understood by the users what was going on, because a lot of their like cognitive processing was going towards trying to understand these UX terms, or come up with definitions for these acronyms that I had put in. So I changed the UX specific terms and labels to more general, well understood definitions. The second insight was that I needed to work on clarity. And from the user testing, I found that a lot of issues were from a lack of clearly defined directions. Some screens I'd put multiple pieces of information, and all of that was competing for users' attention. To fix this issue, I went back and applied some principles of visual hierarchy to better design a layout. So here we can see some of the things that the before and after screenshots. Anything highlighted in red has been changed, and that is the new and updated version. Things we changed was the word term. We turned it to word. We determined that was like a bit better of a descriptor for adding or taking away a word from a word set. I changed the button from create to create and edit because in this menu you're able to create sets and also edit sets, word sets. In this screen on the right here, you'll see that we added some descriptors in the boxes. And this was because if a user was just shown this screen, I didn't feel, and from testing, it showed that users didn't understand what this screen was. So I wanted somebody who had no knowledge of the app or what had previously been clicked to get to this screen and understand that this was a screen to be able to input information to add a word or definition to your word set. Here's some of the visual hierarchy changes. We went from having the picture on top with text on the bottom to putting the text up top, and this was because people were not reading what the words were saying, and so with the picture on top, if they didn't understand the picture, they were just sliding to the next slide without comprehending what was trying to be shown. Here we have some examples of the drop-down menus, and these are for the onboarding process. I changed that from CFUX vocab to biology vocab so that it was a more well-understood term that people could clearly recognize and not spend time trying to figure out if the information was something they should be reading or not. So what's next and the conclusion? I really felt like I learned a few crucial lessons. The first being that I should definitely clarify the design parameters. The second being using websites like Mobbin to get inspiration and understanding of the best practices when designing features. The third, question your designs. Ask, why am I putting this here and what function does it serve? So moving forward, I think that I will need to continue to improve on these user flows that I originally set out to improve on. Going forward, I think that I'll have a better understanding of the questions to ask myself while I'm designing screens, and that will make the whole design process easier overall. And also having a better understanding of how to use these websites like Mobbin to get inspiration or insight and solve design challenges. I think that it's important to look at what's happening in current apps just to see how design issues are being solved. So that's my presentation for Learn It. Thank you for listening.